but this was my neighborhood. So when I heard people from the outside saying things weren't hurt or people weren't hurt, there was almost this little home turf response saying, no, I've been here since age 5. So I know these buildings, and these buildings are not the same. The dust is not the same. And, and life is not going to be the same here. Almost from day one, what the radio broadcast was saying that the air was safe. It was Christy Todd Whitman and it was Giuliani's statements that we heard over and over again, that the air was safe.
You know asbestos was in there, is in those buildings, lead is in those buildings. There are the VOCs. However, the concentrations are such that they don't pose a health hazard. We're going to make sure everybody's safe.
Everybody knows Congress investigated, concluded. The EPA Inspector General investigated, concluded. The EPA Ombudsman investigated, concluded that Christy Todd Whitman did not tell the truth, and that the White House ordered her not to tell the truth.
Within a few days, we got a small number, 5 or 6 apartments tested, and the results were clear. Every one of them had high toxicity levels, and then the mayor and others said people should go back to work, and they should reopen Stuyvesant High School, et cetera. I started screaming, "Don't go back to work! Don't!" And you could see you could see when they were going back to work on Wall Street and all the office buildings, all this white crap still on the ground.
For 5 days, the smell was the most intense thing I've ever seen. For 5 days, I bitched and moaned that there were people walking around. Not only did we inhale and breathe in the air, we were drinking it and eating it because there were young girls there, candy stripers from area hospitals or volunteers with trays handing us McDonald's. They didn't have proper respiratory gear. And I bitched and moaned to anybody who would listen to me. Not once when I was there for 5 days, 5.5 days, did anybody say, "John, put this on, it will help you."
This is my original respirator from Ground Zero that I got 10 days later. But before that, I didn't have anything. Yeah, I was screaming in and out of there with either a motorcycle or a car going to and from, and didn't have it.
Leave the contaminated area immediately.
Is that what that says?
Contact your supervisor if you smell or taste contaminants.
Is that what the bag says? I never read the bag.
I'm sure nobody did.
After the 3rd day, we knew there was nobody alive there anymore. It was simply a cleanup operation. And from that point on, certainly, if possible from earlier, but certainly from that point on, there was no excuse whatsoever for anybody working or being permitted to work on the site or near the site without using proper respiratory equipment. And by proper respiratory equipment, I don't mean the gauze masks, which made things worse, if anything. But I mean real respirators, even if they have to be changed every 20, 25 minutes, even if they're uncomfortable. At the Pentagon, they enforce the OSHA laws, the Occupational Safety and Health laws, which call, in that kind of an environment, for use of respirators for protection. Now, the environment was nowhere near as degraded or as poor at the Pentagon as it was in New York. Nonetheless, they did not permit anybody to work there without a respirator. Here, no one should have been permitted, whether they wanted to or not, to work there without respirators.
We have a lot of fires burning and no water. I've been unable to reach the command post. Chief Galvin is working his way to the command post.
When I started going to support groups in 2003, late 2002, and I started winning my benefits, I was showing others how they can win their benefits and how you can fight back. And then in 2005, everybody was like, "Oh, all the work you're doing, you should start a foundation." And I was like, I don't want to do that, but I did. And listen, I have no desire to do this. I just can't stop. I know you're hungry and you're tired, but you got another hour and a half in you? Yes. I mean, we're trying to get a bill passed. So we're gonna go over to Scott Brown's office. We're gonna go over to Dr. Colburn's office. All right? We're talking about human life. We're talking about heartbeats. We're talking about men that couldn't be here, that have traveled with maybe 80 trips, that have made to DC, that are laying in ICU or at home with IVs in them. We're talking about human suffering. We are at 990 people since 9/11 that have died.
first thought that usually comes to any of our minds in this area is, do we know anyone on the rig? When we heard it was leaking, we didn't know how bad the leak was. Supposedly it wasn't real bad to begin with. We figured we're in 2010, you know, technology. They'll fix this. And then we heard that they couldn't fix it. So we're thinking, well, it's 42 miles from Venice. Maybe the current will carry it somewhere else and it won't hit us. I mean, nobody wants to get hit with oil, just like nobody wants to get hit with a hurricane or a tornado or anything other kind of disaster. You don't want to wish it on anybody else, but you don't want to get hit with it neither. At this point, your head starts spinning. Men laying beside the phone at night with the cell phones on their pillows, waiting for these people from BP to call them with a job, not knowing if their industry is completely destroyed every day, sitting there waiting because they don't know where the next meal's going to come from for their family. So that's the situation we were dealing with, a whole area of panicked fishermen.
Well, when you went there, you were required to go to a class that BP put on this class, and they told you about, you know, oil and don't touch the oil, wear this protective gear, wear your, you know, your suits and everything else. It's just the simple reality of what we're told to do, and the reality of what happened out there were completely different. When I went down to the job, we had absolutely nothing. We arrived on a boat, and I asked where all of our protective gear was. There was absolutely nothing. So, for example, I asked for respirators. Now, you don't need respirators out there. You're not working out at the spill site. So, okay, you know, we're with oil, but still, it was a trial by fire. So your gear becomes more of, your protective gear is a hard hat and a life jacket and steel-toe boots.
BP had two goals. One was to stop the flow of oil from the wellhead, and the other was to stop or reduce as much of the oil from coming on shore into the marshlands. So that was the excuse they used for using so much of the dispersant.
The chemicals we're talking about, benzene, toluene, xylene, the chemicals that are in the dispersants have been documented to create mutations, mutagenic, create cancer, carcinogenic, and create health effects. This is all documented. This is not conjecture.
For every 93 gallons of crude oil that was released into the environment, a gallon of dispersant was used in the environment. That's a huge amount. And the feeling I kept getting over and over again, because I dealt with them on a daily basis, the federal officials, is that they were scared if they made a decision contrary to BP, that BP was going to tag that agency with a chunk of the liability.
So the way to keep the public from knowing how much oil is to bury the oil, hide the body, hide it with dispersant. That's how you hide the body. You can't, it's very hard to prosecute someone for murder if you can't find the body.
Mr. Chairman, we've already referred to the dangerous nature of dispersants here today. In many cases, they may be more toxic than the oil itself. There is no scientific evidence that dispersants can be effective in an oil spill of this magnitude, and nobody can guarantee they are safe. Making matters worse, BP notoriously chose the petroleum-based dispersant Corexit, one of the most toxic and least effective on Gulf crude oil. So far, over 1.5 million gallons of dispersants have been used in the Gulf. In the meantime, people are getting sick from the dispersants, the oil, or some mixture of the two. As many of you know, I have been greatly concerned about the potential health effects from dispersants. I fear we are repeating the same mistakes we made after 9/11 in my district, where thousands of responders and area residents are now sick after the failure of the federal government to provide adequate oversight or enforcement to prevent exposure to toxic chemicals in the air.
Vice President, sir, 9/11 responders, help us pass our bill tomorrow. Sir, help us pass our bill tomorrow. Help 9/11 responders.
Opponents of the bill, led by Senator Tom Coburn, called the bill a new entitlement. Love that word. You know what? You're entitled to this.
Yes. That's right.
So you know what? God bless him. I guess he's finally getting it.
I ordered a lot of people to work there. And a lot of people I worked with got sick. And, you know, it's very emotional for me because a lot of these people have multiple surgeries. One of the captains is very ill right now. You know, I'm lucky. I had cancer, and I'm doing much better. But these guys may not make it.
Now's the moment just to take it all in, because this is getting done. As we speak, the ink's drying on a lot of deal breaking.
Calendar number 641, H.R. 847, an act to amend the Public Health Service Act to extend and improve protections and services to individuals directly impacted by the terrorist attack in New York City on September 11, 2001, and for other purposes.
The question is of passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, appear to have it, and the ayes do have it. The bill as amended is passed.
Okay, great.
We worked for years so hard for something that seemed so simple, to do the right thing, and just couldn't take no for an answer.
We're coming for you, brother. We're coming for you. Mayday, mayday, mayday.
My husband started getting sick at April 29th. They went out on the water. David's been sick on and off all summer, all the way down to brown fluid leaking out of his ears for almost 3 months on and off. But nobody's sick. I've never had a staph infection before in my life. All of a sudden, I break out in 27 nights within 3 days. Went from 3 nights Sunday morning, 9 nights Monday morning, to 27 nights down the back of my legs by Tuesday afternoon. People are going misdiagnosed and untreated all across the Gulf Coast.
A lot of people, especially the folks who went out to help remediate the problem, got dosed.
Right.
Just like 9/11. So there has to be a health screening program for people who live in the area and for the workers, and there has to be a mechanism to provide health care for those people who got dosed.
We live with new symptoms all the time, and you just don't know what's going to happen next. And you're constantly adapting to new challenges that your body is facing. And so it's, you know, I can't tell you how many times, you know, you want to go to the ER to deal with some of these really severe problems, but how many times can you go? No insurance. You know, it's unfortunately, we don't have the money to go treat this. So what do you do? Every time your heart goes absolutely crazy, you go to the ER. Every time you have a serious brain fog and you can't see, you go to the ER. Every time you start bleeding internally, you go to the ER. We would live at the ER, and we don't have the money for that.
There's only 6 byproducts that's coming off the Macondo well. And those 6 byproducts are very cancerous, and they're they attack the central nervous system at different rates in different people. With myself, I mean, they paralyzed me.
Wow. And I heard something about seizures, and having seizures too.
Yes.
That's funny because whenever someone told me that yesterday when we were looking up your stuff, I know 3 people over the past year that have had seizures, like out of nowhere. And my boyfriend actually made the comment, like, I wonder if that's something to do with the oil spill.